you kind of want to use. So just using like the shapes here, and again, just keep in mind of like what we've talked about here. So I think it's easier if you just use like one shape, or maybe two at most. But I'm just going to use a circle here. So I'm just going to click and drag, make the circle. And I'm just going to use that same circle, but just kind of like put them in like different areas. So I'm just going to do Command C to copy, Command V to paste. And I'm just going to like move these circles around. And then if you want, you can play around with the colors, but I want you to just play around with just the value for today. Okay, at some point though, we can change these colors a little bit later. But like right now, I want you to stick with just this gray value. So you got like your whites, grays, and then the darks. Okay, but yeah, don't work on any color today. Okay, just think about strictly values, but we can always change these colors later. So basically, these three compositions that we're working on, these are going to be like, kind of like the foundations for, what you're going to do for your, or what you're going to use for like your big project. So I'm just going to do like some circles here. So I'm just going to copy paste it. You can also make more circles too. It's up to you. It's a little bit quicker if you copy paste it though. So maybe I might want to do something like this where it's kind of like going from like a dark to a gray, and it's getting smaller as it's going down in this direction. But it's up to you how you want to arrange your space. Maybe you might not want to have something that's very linear like this. But if you look at this example here, this is kind of like representing like pattern, maybe emphasis, because it looks like it's trying to emphasize to that white space down here, and then like a movement too, because it's kind of creating this curve movement. So this is basically what I'm just looking for today. But other ways you can arrange it too is you can have the circle here, over there, maybe over here. So instead of like doing like that curve, now I'm doing like a zigzag direction. All right, so yeah, when you're designing these spaces and like the patterns, I want you to try to do it in either 7 or 10 shapes, but don't go more than that. And then if you want, you can add like other shapes too. I wouldn't add like more than like 2 shapes, just because it'll start to get a little bit more complicated or complex. So maybe I might want to add like a line here. Oh yeah, one other thing too I wanted to show you guys is, like let's just say I want to put this line behind like the rest of the shapes here. So if you hit, if you right click on it, click on arrange and click send back, then this is going to send it all the way on the very back of the picture. So maybe I might want to do like a black line here. Yeah, I'm just copy pasting it. As I want to use those same lines again. But the one thing you want to avoid though is, don't use a bunch of different shapes. Okay, you want to try to like, not use too many shapes, just because, the less I'm doing arrange send back. The less shapes you use, usually the better. So, a very good rule to follow is less is more for, especially for like designing space. So I'm just using strictly just like rectangles, or in this case, it'd be like lines and these circles here. So yeah, this is like using at least like 7 shapes. I think this is a pretty good design. Maybe I might want to make this a little bit bigger. So you kind of have to play around with it for today, with how these how your shapes are gonna look. Oh, and then like one other thing too, if you want to like crop the shapes or how it looks, you're gonna make another. This is like after you're done. You're gonna make another box, and I'm just gonna just have like an outline around the edges. It doesn't really matter what color it is. I'm gonna make like a box around it. So now I have a box around the whole thing. That'll be my frame. I'm just gonna highlight the whole thing. I'm gonna click on Object, Clipping Mask, and Make, and I'll crop everything in that small space. Alright, but this is just kind of like a starting point though. But we're going to add like more things if this is like the composition that you want to choose for your final project. But basically this is like almost like making like little thumbnails of your, like the main project you want to work on. So just for the first one, just focus on just the basic shapes. Second one, So this one's a little bit more complex, but you're gonna pull shapes from your name here. So I'm gonna like overlap some of these letters. And you might want to use some of these letters again, so I would just click on the letter, do copy, Command C, paste, and then Command V to paste it. And you just want to overlap some of these letters to like create new shapes and forms. So I'm just gonna overlap this and this together. I'm gonna zoom in just so you can see a little bit better. You might not want to overlap too many things together, maybe like a few of them. But you just gotta be experimental with it. And this one you're gonna use the Pathfinder, so Windows Pathfinder. It's gonna look like this. And I like using the divide. So you click on the divide here, and go to Object, Ungroup. And when you go to Object and Group, then you can take apart the letters. So any of those letters that overlap, it's gonna create like a completely new shape. So kind of like what you did with like the first one, but this one I want you to just only strictly use these shapes here. So maybe I might want to use I don't know, this like weird looking thing that's like part of my D. So I think this has some like really interesting shapes and forms. Kind of like the same idea like before. You're going to use those shapes and create a composition with that. So I might want to do something like that. Maybe I might want to repeat the same shape again. And, like same rules we followed on the first one. Try not to use more than I want to say like 3 of those shapes. This one will be a little bit more challenging just because you have like so many shapes to choose from. So I got 1, 2, and 3 shapes. So this would be like my third one I'm going to use that I think is pretty interesting. And, if you want, you can actually overlap some of these shapes even a little bit more. So like if I wanted to make this a little bit more curved, I can actually copy paste this same shape. Command C, copy, maybe make it a little bit bigger. But you can spend like a lot of time making these shapes, but just try not to spend too much time, but there's like very specific shapes you want. Then you might have to kind of like keep cutting them apart. So I'm just do the divide and object and group. Maybe I want to have them just a little bit more curvier. So I'm gonna use this one here. And if you want, you can kind of stretch and skew the letters a little bit more. So I think that's pretty interesting. So you don't have to work in the space. Maybe I might want to like use this to make like a interesting like shape. So I'm gonna like put this with that, and I'm just copying and pasting this same shape over and over again. So if I made 3 of them, now I can actually highlight all of them and do a copy paste of those 3. So you can use that to make like interesting shapes. Like I think this is an interesting pattern or shape. Just so you can kind of like it's easier to move around. If you click on this one that says Unite, it's gonna actually combine them all together. I don't know, maybe I want to use this shape, but maybe make it into like a gray. And then I'm going to do Control Arrange, and then send it back. So I move in the very back of the picture. And also you can move things to like the very front too if you go to Arrange and bring front. And then these ones in between here. So you see how I brought it to the very front? These ones in between, you kind of like move it between like the spaces. It might be better if you remember the hotkeys. It's going to be Command and one of the bracket keys to move it around. I usually like using these ones, send back or send front. Then you gotta make like a composition with like, this shape here. Maybe I might want to copy it and rotate it the other way. I don't know, just like, you kind of play around with it. And then if you want to crop it again, just, make a box over it. So this one I got like, it's actually a little bit more than 10 shapes, but this is more like one shape here. Highlight, make a box, clipping mask, and click make to crop it in. Alright.